Are you feeling stuck in your life? Are you tired of repeating the same patterns and facing the same challenges every day? Then this video is a must watch for you. Dr. Joe Dispenza is here to share his insights on the power of change and how it can transform your life. He believes that by becoming aware of our thoughts and emotions, we can break free from our old patterns and create new ones that serve our highest good. But what makes this video unique is his scientific approach to this mystical concept. By sharing the latest research in neuroscience and other fields, he makes it easier for you to understand and apply the principles of change in your life. So get ready to embark on a journey towards a better life. Watch till the end and let Dr. Joe Dispenza be your guide. In this video, Dr. Joe Dispenza will discuss a very interesting thing that we are all curious about. Change is an interesting concept because it requires becoming aware. It requires deciding how you no longer want to be, and that level of awareness takes a certain amount of mental effort and restraint. I want to talk about the importance of change, why we should or want to change, and why we would actually want to create a new self or a new life. One of the benefits change is all about expansion. It's all about unlearning certain traits that we've memorized and relearning new ones. It's about breaking the habits of your old self and reinventing yourself. It's all about your decision to no longer think, act, or feel in predictable ways. And with this, it requires pruning synaptic connections and sprouting new connections. So let's hear what Dr. Joe Dispenza will say about this. Make sure to listen carefully. Enjoy. Yeah, one of the exciting things that's happening right now is that I'm coming to the realization that this is a time in history where it's not enough to know. This is a time in history to know how, and my interest is in information that's based on science. And I think science is the contemporary language of mysticism. I think it's science that demystifies the mystical. And if you can apply and combine a little quantum physics with a little neuroscience, with a little neuro and the chronology with a little psychoneuroimmunology or epigenetics in electromagnetism, you can, in a simple way, give people sound scientific information. The more they understand this model and understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, the easier it becomes. So let's demystify just one simple process. If you believe at all that your thoughts have something to do with your life or something to do with your health, the research points out that 90% of the thoughts that you have are the same as the day before. As long as you're thinking the same, more than likely your life or your health are going to stay the same because the same thoughts lead to the same choices. The same choices lead to the same behaviors. The same behaviors create the same experiences, and the same experiences produce the exact same emotions. And those same emotions influence our very same thoughts. And our biology, our circuitry, our neurochemistry, our hormones, and our gene expression stay the same because we're the same, and the principle is nothing changes in our lives until we change. So then the principle in neuroscience is that nerve cells that fire together wire together. If you keep thinking the same thoughts, making the same choices, doing the same things, and reproducing the same experiences that stamped the same networks of neurons into the same patterns, all for the familiar feeling called doing time, we begin to hardwire our brain and our body emotionally to become more of a subconscious program. So 95% of who we are by the time we're in our mid-30s or middle life is a set of memories, behaviors, unconscious habits, automatic emotional responses, hardwired thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions that function automatically. So if you believe in that idea, then if you wake up in the morning and you think about your problems, your brain is the record of the past. Those problems are connected to certain people, certain objects, and certain places at certain times. When you begin to think deeply about your problems, you are remembering your past. And every one of those problems has an emotion associated with it. So the moment we feel unhappy, the moment we feel anxiety, the moment we feel anxiety, the moment we feel unworthy of our bodies is in the past. So thoughts become the language of the brain, and feelings become the language of our body, and how we think and feel is our state of being. But it only takes a thought and a feeling, an image and an emotion, a stimulus and a response. And you're starting the conditioning process, and you're conditioning your body emotionally into the known, into the past. You've done that enough times. The body's so objective that it doesn't know the difference between the real-life experience that's creating that emotion and the emotion that person's fabricating by thought alone. The body believes it's living in the same past experience. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 3 months, and 65 days a year now, the research on epigenetics says that the environment signals the gene, while the end product of an experience in the environment is an emotion. So then the person is signaling the same genes in the same way because the body believes it's living in the same environment. So the trauma, the betrayal, the loss, the drama, whatever it is, the diagnosis that causes the person to feel certain emotions is the majority of the emotions that we feel. And you know this because you're an expert on it, and you write about how our hormones are derived from the hormones of stress. Stress is when your brain and body are knocked out of homeostasis. Right. So it makes sense then that when you perceive a threat or a danger in your life, you turn on that primitive nervous system, and you're mobilizing all your body's research sources for some threat, real or imagined. There's no problem if it's short term, but the chronic, long-term effects of the hormones and stress downregulate genes and create disease. Now the problem is that we can turn on that stress response just by thinking. We can think about our problems and imagine the worst-case scenario in our lives. We can capture bitter memories and do that over and over again. And in effect, if we can turn on the stress response just by thought alone, and the science says that stress can push the genetic buttons that create disease, then our thoughts can make us sick. Well, the question is, if our thoughts can make us sick, is it possible that our thoughts can make us well? And that's kind of my interest, absolutely. And listen, you know this as well as anybody. Chronic diseases require a lifestyle change. And change is an interesting concept. So the hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before. And the moment you decide to make a different choice, get ready because you're going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel unfamiliar. There's going to be some uncertainty. You're not going to be in the know. You're stepping out into the unknown. You're doing something differently in the body, which has been conditioned to be the mind. The servant is now the master. So the body loves the familiar. It loves the same suffering, the same pain, and the same unworthiness. It's been conditioned that way for years. It really is running the show. So the moment you step out into the unknown, the body goes. Wait a second. I'd rather feel guilty than this feeling of the unknown because I can't predict my future. So the body starts influencing the mind, and we start to hear this chatter in our heads that says, I can start tomorrow, tomorrow better than you really don't feel like it today. Why don't you just have one piece of cake? You're a loser. It's your parents' fault. It's your ex's fault. It's your culture's fault, whatever it is. And if we accept, believe, and surrender to that thought as if it's the truth, that's an old circuit in the brain that says that thought will lead to the same choice, which will lead to the same behavior, which will create the same experience, and which will produce the same feeling or emotion. The person says, "Well, this feels right to me." No, 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 no. That feels familiar. When crossing the river of change, going from the old self to the new self, there is a neurological, biological, hormonal, or genetic death of the old self. There's pruning going on. There's inhibition going on. We're no longer releasing the same stress hormones that give us arousal. And so if there are 3 types of stress, physical, chemical, and emotional physical stress being trauma injuries, accidents, falls. Chemical stress, viruses, bacteria, pesticides, pollutants, toxins, hangovers. Whatever emotional stress, that's the big one. That's family tragedies. Second mortgages, single parenting for one case. Whatever it is, it tends to be that and that. The difficult one to manage is really our emotional stress. So if you can help people get more physically balanced, more chemically balanced, and more emotionally balanced, then the effects of their personal change will be expedited. Yeah, and they'll have a longer duration. So the person sees you for 6 months. They start a great program. They start making the right choices, and they start feeling better. And then, once they make the wrong choice, it's a downward spiral back to the old unconscious habits in their emotional condition. They feel unworthy again, and they return to your clinic, or they return to your consultation, and they come back with the same exact conditions. And the simple solution is, yeah, because you return to the same personality. You're feeling the same emotions, and your body's back to believing it's in the same environmental condition. So if your personality creates your personal reality, and I believe that, and your personality is made up how you think, how you act, and how you act, and how you feel, then the present personality who is listening to this podcast has created the present personal reality called their life. Not your ex, not your parents, not your boss. You create your life so it makes sense. Then, if you wanted to create a new personal reality, you'd have to change your personality. In other words, if you want to change your life, you have to change your life, you have to change. And nothing changes in your life until you change. So then, with this first step and change, 95% of who we are is a set of unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions. The first step is to become conscious of your unconscious thoughts and aware of how you behave. Do you complain? Do you blame? Do you make excuses? You judge? Do you feel aggressive? And then look at the emotions. What is this emotion I'm feeling? Wow, this is guilt. This is sad. This is victimization. This is unhappiness. Name it. So now you're so conscious of it that you don't go unconscious, and we turn back to the same self. And how many times do we have to forget until we stop forgetting and start remembering? That's the moment of change.